Superman's symbol might represent hope, but even he has dark days and moments in the comics. Welcome back, Nerd Squad, it's me, Amanda, and this is the top 10 darkest Superman moments. What Superman moment broke your heart? Number 10. Stops Wonder Woman. In issue number 39 of the 2011 Wonder Woman series, Wonder Woman calls out her teammates for not killing. This might seem strange to you, knowing that Wonder Woman is a hero, and generally we don't associate heroes with killing, but at the end of the day, Diana is still an Amazon, and has also been the god of war. She is ultimately a warrior, so although she does believe in peaceful resolutions 100%, there are times when she acknowledges that to protect innocence, sometimes blood actually has to be shed. In this case, thousands of people were killed by an alien enemy who was harvesting humans to use as a food source, and Wonder Woman almost killed him for it, until she was stopped by Superman. While Batman later also calls her out, in the moment it is Clark that stands between Diana and this dark act. Superman puts himself between Diana and their foe, asking her, "What are you doing? Have you forgotten who we are? Who you are?" And friends, before I move on to our next spot on this list, if you love what we do here at Top 10 Nerd and you want more content like this, we do have a superhero playlist that's filled with lots of other superhero content. Number 9. Jon Kent Grows Up. I think one of the darkest moments for fans of Superman and for Clark himself has to be when he was forced to miss out on his son's childhood. And of course, so were we. Robbed, I say. Jon Kent is the son of Superman and Lois Lane, and there was a period in the comics where he went out to space. He was basically like finding himself, learning about his powers, all that good stuff. However, while he was only gone for seemingly 3 weeks, time works differently in space, at least in this story. I feel like that's never really been a consistent thing in the comics, but here, that's a thing. For Jon, it was 7 years that had passed, with him moving from childhood towards adulthood by the time he returned to Earth, which means that Clark missed out on a lot of dad time, sadly. Number 8. Superman is defeated. Superman and Doomsday's fight in the comics would go on to become one of the most iconic in all of comic book history, thanks to it leading to the death of Doomsday and also, more importantly, the death of Superman. In this fight, Superman gives up his life to basically defeat Doomsday. This works with Doomsday perishing alongside Superman, ushering in the mourning period that would follow for Earth's greatest hero. But while some could not believe what they were reading, this shocking moment at least would not end up being quite so frighteningly permanent, with Clark Kent later being resurrected and returning. But at that time, the idea that a hero as great as Superman, who always seemingly ended up prevailing and winning against his villains, could lose and die was considered quite dark and shocking indeed, especially for such a positive hero like Superman. Number 7. Dark Multiverse Death of Superman. If you thought the death of Superman in his fight against Doomsday from the main continuity was rough, whoa, wait till you hear about the Dark Multiverse version of this story. After Superman dies at the hands of Doomsday, Lois becomes depressed and jaded, believing that the world basically failed Clark. She ends up bonding with the Eradicator, who claims it failed in its mission to resurrect the fallen Superman, and instead bonds with Lois so that she can succeed where she believes other heroes have failed, fighting on in Clark's name. However, Lois gets her whole superhero ideology a little bit twisted, and she goes too far in comparison to the hero who she's attempting to emulate here, her believed to be lost love Clark Kent, killing those who oppose her, villains and heroes alike. It turns out Superman was able to actually be resurrected, it just took longer than expected in this story. He returns, but only lives long enough to express his disappointment and disgust at what Lois has become before he is taken out permanently by Cyborg Superman. Ouch. Number 6. Losing his dad. This one might make you cry, so be warned. In issue number 76 of Superman/Batman, Dick Grayson has taken up his father Bruce Wayne's role as Batman after his apparent death fighting against Darkseid. Now, of course, we would later learn that Batman didn't actually die here, but at the same time, everyone did think he was dead. Superman, aka Clark Kent, is dealing with his own grief at this time. He has also just lost his father, and his sense of loss comes into play when he goes to confront Dick Grayson, who has recently taken up his mentor and adopted father's mantle of Batman. Superman confronts Dick and tells him that he has to take the Batsuit off and give it up, that he has to let Batman go. However, Dick pushes back, turning the focus of the conversation to Clark's loss. Dick says, "I know you lost your father and you're angry. You can do anything in the world, but you can't bring them back. I lost my father too, and this is what I can do. Number 5. Fighting against his best friend. What could be worse than having to fight your best friend to the death? This is a very real thing that Clark was confronted with in the Dark Knight universe, the alternate reality belonging to Earth 31. This reality was created by Frank Miller and first appeared in Batman The Dark Knight Returns #1. After being retired for years, Batman is forced to return when the Joker also resurfaces. However, doing so puts him in conflict with Superman, who is currently working for the president. Tasked with getting rid of Batman, the two end up in a fight to the death, with Superman seemingly winning the fight as a result of Bruce having a heart attack and dying at a moment when he actually may have been about to win. Fortunately though, Batman would not really die, but instead use the fight to basically fake his death so that he could not have the president trying to make sure he was gone, and it's implied that despite the seemingly real high stakes fight we just witnessed between them, Clark may have actually been in on Bat's plan the whole time. Kind of ruined some of the stakes, I think, but at the same time, still a pretty crazy fight. Still a pretty dark time, I think we could say. Number 4. Whatever happened to the Man of Tomorrow? What is one of the saddest or darkest things that can happen in any superhero story? How about it ending? That is what this story featuring Superman is all about. It's told from a retrospective point of view through the voice of Lois Lane, who is being interviewed by the Daily Planet. The story reflects on the last few years of Superman's superhero career, with the interview taking place 10 years after Superman's final appearance, and revisiting the loss of many of his closest friends and allies, including deaths of Jimmy Olsen and Krypto. Number 3. Betrayed by his ally. One of the most heartbreaking alternate realities in the comics sees friend turn on friend in a deadly battle. In Wonder Woman Dead Earth, Wonder Woman doesn't just fight Clark, she ends up killing him. This all goes down when Man's World decides to attack Themyscira. In a single moment, Diana's entire home is wiped out. Not only does she lose all her fellow warriors and sisters, but the tragedy also costs Diana her mom, Hippolyta, who also perishes in this attack. While she is frustrated that she was not able to protect her people, Superman arrives and he attempts to console her. Instead of comforting Diana though, this just basically makes her angry, as she also blames Superman and her fellow heroes of Earth for standing by and doing nothing to protect her people and her home. Clark, however, was called to his parents' side to basically protect them at the time, which is why he wasn't there. But this excuse is not enough for Diana, who basically does not hear it at all, and decides to take out her rage on him. An epic fight ensues that destroys most of the world and leaves Superman dead. However, Wonder Woman wouldn't remember what she had done until years later, and that's also part of the heartbreaking part of this series, because when she remembers it, it's like, whoa, devastating. Number 2. Supergirl's demise. What's worse than fighting your best friend or being killed by an ally? How about losing family? And not just any family, a fellow Kryptonian at that. With Superman being one of the last surviving members of Krypton, the loss of cousin Supergirl during the Crisis on Infinite Earths event cut deep. Kara gave her life to protect Kal, who was losing badly in a fight against the Anti-Monitor at the time. She succeeded in saving him, but it ended up costing Kara her own life, leaving Superman to mourn her. Number 1. The death of Lois Lane. If you thought the death of Superman was bad, just wait till you see what happens when Lois dies. It is not pretty. It's not good. You could argue this is one of the darkest Superman moments I think we've ever gotten across the multiverse. In the Injustice reality and story, Lois Lane is killed by the Joker and Harley Quinn, snuffed out in an instant when Superman is tricked into believing that Lois is actually Doomsday Returned, with the life that was growing inside her also being lost, what would have been her and Clark's firstborn. This, as well as the devastation of Metropolis, causes Superman to basically snap. He in turn kills Joker and sets down a path to become one of the greatest villains and tyrants Earth has probably ever seen. That's about it. Until next time, you stay nerdy, YouTube.